The broken dragon. Marcus Chen wiped the grease from his hands with a dirty rag, the familiar smell of motor oil and metal shavings filling his nostrils. The mining station's repair bay hummed with the constant drone of ventilation systems and distant machinery. Another 12-hour shift fixing broken equipment on this god-forsaken rock floating in the middle of nowhere. The emergency klaxon shattered the monotonous quiet, its piercing wail echoing through the corridors. Marcus dropped his wrench and rushed to the bay doors as they slid open with a mechanical hiss. A battered cargo shuttle limped into the docking bay, sparks flying from damaged thrusters and hull plating scorched black. "Medical emergency!" shouted the pilot, a grizzled veteran named Rodriguez. "Got something big in the cargo hold. Alive, but barely." Marcus followed Rodriguez to the shuttle's rear compartment. The smell hit him first, a mixture of ozone, burnt metal, and something else he couldn't identify. Sweet, almost floral. The cargo bay doors opened with a grinding screech of damaged hydraulics. What Marcus saw inside made him step backward in shock. Curled in the corner of the hold was a creature unlike anything he'd ever seen, even in his 15 years working the Outer Rim colonies. It looked like a dragon from the old Earth legends his grandmother used to tell him, but this was real, breathing, and clearly in agony. The creature's scales were pure white, like freshly fallen snow, each one catching the harsh bay lights and reflecting them back in prismatic patterns. Its body stretched nearly 4 meters from snout to tail, with powerful limbs ending in claws that had torn gouges in the shuttle's metal flooring. Massive wings lay crumpled against its sides, the delicate membrane between the wing bones torn and bleeding a luminescent blue fluid. "Found it floating in a debris field," Rodriguez explained, keeping his distance. "Shipwreckage everywhere. Looks like whatever attacked it didn't stick around to finish the job." The dragon's head lifted slightly at the sound of voices, revealing large, intelligent eyes the color of molten gold. Those eyes fixed on Marcus with an intensity that made him shiver. There was something profoundly alien yet familiar in that gaze. Pain. Yes, but also a fierce intelligence that spoke of a mind as complex as any human's. Can it understand us?" Marcus asked, taking a cautious step closer. "Don't know. Don't care," Rodriguez replied. "Station commander wants it in the medical bay for quarantine. We don't know what diseases this thing might carry." Marcus looked at the creature again. Its breathing was labored, sides heaving with obvious distress. One of its rear legs was bent at an unnatural angle, clearly broken. Burns covered much of its right side, the white scales blackened and cracked. But what struck him most was the creature's posture. It wasn't aggressive or threatening. It was trying to make itself as small as possible, wings pulled tight against its body despite the obvious pain this caused. "Look at it," Marcus said softly. "It's terrified." "It's a predator," Rodriguez countered. "Look at those claws, those teeth. Thing could rip us apart without breaking a sweat." Marcus studied the dragon more carefully. Yes, it had formidable natural weapons, but its behavior suggested something else entirely. The way it held its head, the careful positioning of its limbs to avoid causing further injury. This was a thinking being, not a mindless beast. "We need to get it to the medical bay," Marcus said, but his mind was already racing ahead to a problem. The medical bay was 3 levels up, accessible only through corridors barely wide enough for standard human equipment. There was no way to transport something this large through the station's cramped passages. "That's not happening," said Dr. Sarah Kim, the station's chief medical officer, who had arrived with a small team of medics. "Even if we could get it there, our equipment isn't designed for alien physiology. We have no idea how to treat this thing." Marcus watched as the dragon's golden eyes tracked the conversation between the humans. There was definitely intelligence there, and something that might have been understanding. Could it comprehend their language? So what? We just let it die? Marcus asked. Dr. Kim shrugged apologetically. I'm sorry, but we don't have the resources or expertise to help it. The most humane thing would be to put it out of its misery. The dragon's eyes widened at those words, and it tried to push itself further back into the corner of the cargo hold. A low, musical sound emerged from its throat. Not a growl or roar, but something almost like a whimper. The sound cut through Marcus like a knife. No, he said firmly. We're not killing it. Marcus, be reasonable, Dr. Kim said. Even if we wanted to help, what could we do? We can't move it, we can't treat it properly, and we don't know if it's dangerous. Marcus looked around the cargo bay, his mechanical mind already working on the problem. The space was large enough, and it had power connections for the basic life support systems. It wouldn't be comfortable, but it could work as a temporary medical facility. Then we bring the medical equipment here, he said. Dr. Kim stared at him. You want to turn the cargo bay into a field hospital? For an alien creature we know nothing about? Yes, Marcus said, his voice gaining confidence. Look, I've rigged life support systems for emergency situations before. We can set up a clean room environment in here. Bring in whatever medical equipment you need. It's not ideal, but it's better than letting it die. The dragon was listening to every word, its golden eyes moving between the humans as they spoke. When Marcus made his proposal, the creature's breathing seemed to steady slightly, and it fixed its gaze on the mechanic with what looked like hope. Dr. Kim sighed. Even if we could set up a treatment area, I have no idea how to treat alien injuries. I don't know its anatomy, its biochemistry, what medications might help or kill it. Then we learn, Marcus said. We start with the basics. Stop the bleeding, stabilize the broken bones, keep it comfortable. We figure out the rest as we go. Commander's not going to approve this, Rodriguez warned. Uses too many resources for something that might not even survive the night. Marcus looked back at the dragon, meeting those intelligent golden eyes. In them, he saw something that reminded him of his younger sister after their parents' accident, scared, hurt, but still fighting to survive, still hoping that someone, anyone, would care enough to help. Then we do it without official approval, Marcus said quietly. I'll take full responsibility. Over the next 6 hours, Marcus worked with a determination that surprised even himself. He sealed off the cargo bay from the rest of the shuttle, installed additional air filtration systems, and rigged emergency medical equipment that Dr. Kim grudgingly provided. The dragon watched his every move with those penetrating golden eyes, occasionally making soft musical sounds that seemed to convey gratitude. The hardest part was convincing the dragon to let them approach. It took nearly an hour of slow, careful movements and soothing words before the creature allowed Marcus to come close enough to examine its injuries. Up close, Marcus could see that the burns were worse than he'd initially thought, covering nearly a quarter of the dragon's body. The broken leg was a clean fracture, though, which might heal properly with the right care. Dr. Kim arrived with additional supplies just as Marcus was trying to figure out how to set the broken limb. She took one look at the dragon's injuries and shook her head. "This is insane," she muttered, but she knelt down beside Marcus anyway. "The bone structure is remarkably similar to a large earth reptile, but the musculature is completely different. And look at these scales. They're not just protective covering. They're part of some kind of sensory network." As she spoke, she gently probed the area around the break. The dragon flinched, but didn't pull away, seeming to understand that the humans were trying to help. Its golden eyes never left Marcus's face, as if it had identified him as the leader of this unlikely rescue effort. "Can you set the bone?" Marcus asked. "I think so," Dr. Kim replied. "But we'll need to improvise a splint. This leg is nearly twice the size of anything in our medical supplies." Marcus was already mentally cataloging the materials in his workshop. I can fabricate something. Give me an hour. As he worked in his repair bay, cutting and shaping metal struts and padding them with synthetic materials, Marcus found himself thinking about the dragon's behavior. There was something almost human in the way it communicated through gesture and expression. When Dr. Kim had examined its injuries, the creature had actually extended the broken leg toward her, as if asking for help. When he returned with the improvised splint, Marcus found Dr. Kim sitting beside the dragon, gently cleaning the burn wounds with antiseptic solution. The creature was perfectly still, allowing the treatment despite what must have been considerable pain. "Remarkable," Dr. Kim murmured. "Its pain tolerance is extraordinary, and its cooperation suggests a level of intelligence we rarely see even in the higher Earth mammals." Setting the splint was a delicate process that required both humans working in careful coordination. The dragon watched every move, occasionally making soft sounds that seemed to encourage their efforts. When they finished, it carefully tested the stabilized limb, then looked at both humans with what could only be described as gratitude. "What now?" Dr. Kim asked, as they cleaned up their improvised medical station. Marcus looked at the dragon, which had managed to arrange itself more comfortably now that its leg was properly supported. The creature was still badly injured, still weak from blood loss and trauma, but there was a subtle change in its demeanor. Hope, perhaps, or trust. "Now we see if it survives the night," Marcus said, "and if it does, we figure out how to help it heal." As the station's artificial night cycle began, Marcus made himself a makeshift bed in the corner of the cargo bay. He told himself it was to monitor the dragon's condition, but the truth was simpler. He couldn't bear the thought of leaving the creature alone in its pain. The dragon seemed to appreciate the company. As Marcus settled down with the emergency blanket and a small reading light, the creature adjusted its position so it could keep him in sight. Those golden eyes stayed open for a long time, watching the human who had chosen to help rather than abandon it. Just before Marcus drifted off to sleep, he heard something that made him pause. A sound so soft he almost missed it. The dragon was humming. Not the wordless musical sounds it had made earlier, but something with rhythm and melody, almost like a lullaby. "You're welcome," Marcus whispered into the darkness, and for just a moment he could have sworn he saw the dragon nod in response. The Broken Dragon. Second document. Marcus woke to the sound of gentle humming, a melodic vibration that seemed to resonate through the metal floor of the cargo bay. For a moment, he couldn't remember where he was or why he was sleeping on cold deck plating. Then he opened his eyes and saw the dragon watching him, its golden gaze bright with intelligence and something that might have been amusement. "Good morning to you too," Marcus said, sitting up and stretching muscles stiff from sleeping on the floor. The dragon's humming stopped, but it tilted its head in what seemed like acknowledgement. The creature looked better than it had the night before. The improvised IV drip that Dr. Kim had rigged was nearly empty, and the dragon's breathing was deeper and more regular. The burns on its side were already showing signs of healing, new scale growth appearing at the edges of the damaged areas. "Impressive healing factor," Dr. Kim observed, entering the cargo bay with her morning medical supplies. "The cellular regeneration rate is unlike anything I've seen. At this pace, most of the surface burns should be healed within a week." Marcus stood and approached the dragon slowly, as had become their routine. The creature no longer flinched when he drew near, instead extending its injured leg for him to examine. The swelling had gone down significantly, and there were no signs of infection. "How's the pain?" Marcus asked, knowing the dragon couldn't answer but somehow feeling compelled to ask anyway. The dragon made a soft, trilling sound and gestured with its uninjured front leg toward the food containers Dr. Kim had brought. Its meaning was clear. It was hungry, which was definitely a good sign. "What does something like this eat?" Marcus wondered aloud. Dr. Kim consulted her tablet. Based on the tooth structure, I'd guess it's omnivorous. The front teeth are designed for tearing, but the back ones are clearly for grinding plant matter. I brought some protein bars and some of the fruit from the hydroponics bay. The dragon accepted both offerings eagerly, using its front claws with surprising delicacy to handle the small portions. It ate slowly, methodically, pausing occasionally to make satisfied sounds that reminded Marcus of a cat's purr. As the days passed, a routine developed. Marcus would arrive early each morning to check on the dragon before his regular shift. Dr. Kim would visit twice daily to monitor the healing progress and change bandages. The dragon, for its part, seemed to enjoy the company, often humming softly when the humans were present. On the fourth day, Marcus noticed something interesting. The dragon had been watching him work on a damaged control panel that he'd brought to the cargo bay to repair. When Marcus struggled to reach a particular connection, the dragon carefully extended one of its long claws and held the wire in place. "Did you just—" Marcus stared at the creature in amazement. "You understood what I needed?" The dragon made a pleased chirping sound and settled back, watching as Marcus completed the repair with its assistance. "Dr. Kim needs to see this," Marcus muttered, finishing his work quickly. When Dr. Kim arrived for her evening check, Marcus demonstrated by starting work on another broken device. Sure enough, the dragon immediately began helping, using its claws as precision tools and even using its tail to brace components that needed steady support. "This changes everything," Dr. Kim breathed. "This level of technological comprehension suggests a highly advanced intelligence. Marcus, I don't think we're dealing with just an animal here. This might be a sentient being." The dragon seemed to understand their excitement. It made a series of complex musical sounds, almost like it was trying to communicate something specific. Then, with careful movements, it began to trace patterns in the dust on the cargo bay floor. Marcus and Dr. Kim watched in fascination as geometric shapes appeared, circles, triangles, and more complex mathematical symbols that neither human recognized, but that clearly had meaning to their patient. "It's trying to talk to us," Marcus realized. "Those aren't random drawings. That's communication." Over the following days, a primitive form of communication developed between the humans and the dragon. The creature, whom Marcus had started calling Snow because of its white scales, proved to have a remarkable ability to learn human gestures and even seemed to understand many spoken words. Snow's injuries continued to heal at an astonishing rate. The broken leg, which should have taken months to mend, was already bearing weight after just 1 week. The burns had faded to barely visible marks, and new scales had grown in to replace the damaged ones. But as Snow's physical condition improved, Marcus began to notice something troubling. The dragon often stared at the sealed cargo bay doors with what looked like longing. Sometimes it would spread its wings, which had healed completely, and make soft sounds that reminded Marcus of bird calls. Snow was homesick. "We need to talk about what happens next," Dr. Kim said during one of her visits. "Snow is almost completely healed. Soon the question is going to come up about what to do with it." "With her." "Her?" Marcus asked. "Based on some anatomical observations, I'm reasonably certain Snow is female," Dr. Kim explained. "But that's not the important issue. Marcus, the station commander, is already asking questions about the resources we're using. And there are people who think Snow might be valuable, either as a specimen for study or as some kind of asset." Marcus felt a cold knot form in his stomach. "What do you mean?" "I mean there are corporate interests who would pay a fortune for a live specimen of an unknown intelligent species. And there are military applications, too. Imagine the advantage of having a creature with Snow's capabilities as an ally or weapon." Marcus looked at Snow, who was listening to their conversation with obvious understanding. The dragon's golden eyes met his, and he saw fear there for the first time since that first day. "They want to sell her," Marcus said flatly. "Or study her. Or use her. Marcus, I've grown fond of Snow too, but we have to face reality. We can't keep her here indefinitely, and once word gets out about her intelligence level, we won't have a choice about what happens to her." That night, Marcus sat beside Snow as he had every night for 2 weeks. The dragon was quiet, not humming her usual lullabies. Instead, she seemed lost in thought, occasionally making soft sounds that reminded Marcus of sighing. "I'm sorry," Marcus said quietly. "I wish things were different." Snow turned to look at him, then began tracing shapes in the dust again. This time the pattern was different, a series of interconnected circles with lines radiating outward. She pointed at the pattern, then at herself, then at the sealed cargo bay doors. "A map?" Marcus guessed. "Are you trying to show me where you came from?" Snow made an excited trilling sound and nodded vigorously. She began adding more detail to the pattern, smaller circles that might represent planets or stations, connecting lines that could be travel routes. Then she pointed at one particular circle and tapped her chest. "Home," Marcus said, understanding. "That's your home." Snow's expression became sad, and she made a sound that was unmistakably mournful. She pointed at the pattern again, then spread her wings partially and made flying motions. Marcus felt his heart break a little. Snow wasn't just homesick. She was trying to tell him she could go home if she had the chance. But how could he possibly help her? Even if he could figure out where she came from, how could a human mechanic on a remote mining station get her there? The answer came to him suddenly, and it was so obvious he couldn't believe he hadn't thought of it before. "Snow," he said slowly, "can you fly? I mean, are your wings completely healed?" The dragon looked at him curiously, then glanced at her wings. She spread them to their full span, nearly 8 meters across, and flapped them experimentally. The powerful wing beats created a downdraft that scattered the dust patterns and sent Marcus's hair whipping around his face. Okay, Marcus laughed, raising his hands. "I believe you can fly, but Snow, this is a space station. There's vacuum outside these walls. You can't just fly home." Snow folded her wings and gave Marcus a look that seemed to say he was being deliberately obtuse. She traced another pattern in the dust, this one clearly representing a spacecraft. Then she pointed at herself and made flying motions again. "You can pilot a ship?" Marcus asked incredulously. Snow nodded enthusiastically and began drawing more complex diagrams. What emerged was clearly a spacecraft design, but unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. The configuration was elegant and organic-looking, with sweeping curves that seemed more grown than built. "This is your ship design?" Marcus asked. "Your people build spacecraft?" Snow made confirming sounds and added more detail to the drawing. The level of technological sophistication was remarkable. Propulsion systems that Marcus could only guess at, what appeared to be advanced life support systems, and control interfaces that seemed designed for clawed hands rather than human fingers. Marcus stared at the drawings in amazement. Snow wasn't just an intelligent alien. She was a member of a spacefaring civilization. Her people had technology, possibly more advanced than human technology. And she was stranded here because her ship had been destroyed. "Snow," Marcus said carefully, "were you alone in your ship? Or were there others?" Snow's expression became deeply sad. She drew several smaller figures around the spacecraft diagram, then made scratching motions through them. Her meaning was clear. Her crew, her family, her friends had not survived whatever attack had destroyed their ship. Marcus felt a surge of anger at the unknown attackers who had killed Snow's people and left her alone and injured in the cold vacuum of space. But more than that, He felt a determination to help her that surprised him with its intensity. "We'll figure this out," he promised. "I don't know how yet, but we'll find a way to get you home." Snow looked at him for a long moment, then did something that took Marcus completely by surprise. She reached out with one large claw and gently touched his hand, careful not to scratch him with the razor-sharp tip. The gesture was unmistakably grateful and unmistakably trusting. The next morning brought unwelcome news. Commander Torres arrived in the cargo bay with 2 corporate representatives and a military advisor. All 3 wore the kind of expression that meant trouble. "Mr. Chen," Commander Torres said stiffly, "I understand you've been harboring an unregistered alien specimen without proper authorization." "I've been providing medical care to an injured sentient being," Marcus replied carefully. One of the corporate representatives, a thin man in an expensive suit, stepped forward. "Mr. Chen, I'm David Park from Xenobiology Research Corporation. We're prepared to offer the station a substantial finder's fee for transfer of the specimen to our research facility." "Her name is Snow," Marcus said firmly, "and she's not for sale." The military advisor, a stern woman with colonel's insignia, spoke up. "Mr. Chen, you may not have a choice in this matter. If this creature represents a potential military asset or threat, it falls under Defense Department jurisdiction." Snow had been listening to the entire conversation with obvious understanding. Now she made a low sound that Marcus had never heard before, not musical like her usual vocalizations, but something that raised the hair on the back of his neck. It was unmistakably a warning. "She understands what you're saying," Marcus said, "and she doesn't like it any more than I do." The corporate representative laughed dismissively. "Mr. Chen, you've obviously anthropomorphized what is essentially a very clever animal. Our xenobiologists will be much better equipped to assess its actual intelligence level." That was apparently the wrong thing to say. Snow rose to her full height, her wings spreading slightly in what Marcus now recognized as a dominance display. She fixed the corporate representative with a stare that made the man take several steps backward. Then Snow did something that shocked everyone in the room. She spoke. The words came slowly, carefully pronounced, but unmistakably human language. Not, animal, person. The silence that followed was deafening. Commander Torres stared at Snow with his mouth open. The corporate representative looked like he was seeing a ghost. The military advisor had her hand moving toward her sidearm. "Did it just—" Commander Torres stammered. "She just spoke," Marcus said, feeling a mixture of pride and fear. "Snow, how long have you been able to understand our language?" Snow tilted her head thoughtfully. "Understand. Many days. Speak. Harder. Your mouth sounds different than mine." The corporate representative recovered his composure first. "This is even better than we thought. A talking alien specimen would be worth 10 times our initial offer." Snow's eyes narrowed dangerously, and Marcus quickly stepped between her and the visitors. "Gentleman, lady, I think you need to reconsider your approach here. You're talking about enslaving a sentient being. Where I come from, we have words for that kind of thing, and none of them are legal." "Mr. Chen," the military advisor said coldly, "you're in no position to make legal threats. This creature could represent a security risk to human space. It needs to be properly contained and studied." "Contained?" Snow's voice was getting stronger, more confident. "Studied? Like laboratory animal?" Her wings spread wider, and Marcus could see the powerful muscles in her shoulders tensing. Snow might be grateful for their help, but she was clearly not going to go quietly if these people tried to take her by force. "Easy, Snow," Marcus said soothingly. "Let me handle this." He turned back to the officials, his mind racing. There had to be a way out of this that didn't involve Snow being taken away to become someone's research subject or weapon. But what leverage did a simple mechanic have against corporate interests and military authority? The answer came to him as he looked at Snow's wing patterns on the cargo bay floor. She had been drawing technological designs far advanced of human capabilities. If Snow's people had that level of technology, and if they came looking for her, "You know," Marcus said casually, "you might want to think about the diplomatic implications here." "What diplomatic implications?" Commander Torres asked. Marcus gestured toward Snow's drawings. "Snow's people are clearly technologically advanced. Advanced enough for interstellar travel, advanced enough to build ships humans probably couldn't even understand. What do you think happens when they come looking for her and find out we've been treating her like a laboratory specimen?" The military advisor frowned. "Are you suggesting this creature's people represent a potential threat?" "I'm suggesting they represent a potential ally," Marcus replied, "or a potential enemy, depending on how we treat their missing crew member. Snow, are your people likely to come looking for you?" Snow nodded vigorously. "Family comes. Always comes for family. Find me. Soon." The corporate representative looked nervous for the first time. "How soon?" Snow considered this, then began tracing patterns in the dust again. She drew what looked like a calendar or timing system, marking off periods with careful claw strokes. "Few days, maybe," she said, "depending on how far they search." Commander Torres looked pale. "Mr. Chen, are you telling me we might have an unknown alien fleet arriving at this station within days?" "I'm telling you that Snow's people are probably looking for her, and when they arrive, our treatment of her is going to determine whether they see us as friends or enemies. Do you really want to risk first contact with an advanced alien civilization by treating their representative like a prisoner?" The silence stretched for long moments as the implications sank in. Finally, the military advisor spoke up. "What do you suggest, Mr. Chen?" Marcus looked at Snow, who was watching him with those intelligent golden eyes. He saw hope there, and trust, and something that might have been pride. She believed in him, believed he would find a way to help her. "I suggest we treat Snow like what she is, a stranded traveler who needs our help to get home. We help her contact her people, we facilitate a peaceful meeting, and we show them that humans can be trusted allies." Snow made a pleased, trilling sound and nodded enthusiastically. "Good plan, Marcus friend, very good plan." The corporate representative tried one more time. "The research opportunities alone." "We'll be much better if we have the cooperation of Snow's people instead of their hostility," Marcus cut him off. "You want to study their technology? Ask nicely. You want to establish trade relationships? Don't kidnap their family members." Commander Torres sighed heavily. "Mr. Chen, you realize you're asking me to bet this entire station's safety on your assessment of an alien creature's intentions." Marcus looked at Snow again, remembering the past 2 weeks. The trust she'd shown, the gratitude, the careful way she'd helped with his repair work, the gentle touch of her claw on his hand when she'd promised to help. "Her name is Snow," he said firmly. "And yes, I'm willing to bet on her. The question is, are you?" The Broken Dragon. Third document. 3 days after the confrontation with the station officials, Marcus was running final diagnostics on the communication array when the proximity alarms began screaming. He dropped his tools and rushed to the control center, where Commander Torres was staring at the sensor displays with a mixture of fear and awe. "Multiple contacts," the sensor operator reported. 12 ships. Unknown configuration. They're not showing up on our identification databases." Marcus looked at the tactical display and felt his breath catch. The ships were unlike anything in human space. Sleek, organic-looking vessels that seemed to flow through space rather than travel through it. They moved with a grace that made human ships look clumsy by comparison. "Snow's people," he said quietly. Commander Torres nodded grimly. "They're not responding to our hails, and Mr. Chen, they have us completely surrounded. The alien fleet had arranged itself in a perfect sphere around the mining station. maintaining a precise distance that suggested both advanced navigation and tactical awareness. The ships themselves were beautiful in a way that human engineering rarely achieved, all curves and flowing lines that reminded Marcus of Snow's own elegant form. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we are receiving a transmission. It's not on any frequency we normally use, and the signal pattern is completely unknown." Commander Torres looked at Marcus. "Think your friend can help us with this?" Marcus was already heading for the door. "I'm on it." He found Snow in the cargo bay, standing upright on her heeled leg and looking toward the ceiling as if she could see through the station's hull to the ships beyond. Her posture was alert, excited, and relieved all at once. "Snow!" Marcus called as he entered. "Your people are here. They're trying to communicate with us, but we can't understand their language." Snow turned to him with eyes that sparkled with joy. "Family comes. I knew they would find me." Then her expression became more serious. "But they are worried. They know I was hurt, and they do not know if your people are friends or enemies." "Can you help us talk to them?" Marcus asked. Snow nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, I translate. But Marcus, friend, my people are... careful. They have been hurt by other species before. You must show them that humans are good." Marcus felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. The next few hours could determine whether humanity's first contact with an alien civilization led to friendship or war, and it all depended on a mechanic who'd never been trained for diplomatic situations. "What do I need to do?" he asked. Snow considered this carefully. "First, you come with me to speak with them. They trust me, and they see you helped me. This is good start. Second, you must let them see the truth, that you helped, not because you wanted something, but because it was right thing to do." 20 minutes later, Marcus found himself in the station's communication center, standing beside Snow as she prepared to speak with her people for the first time in over 2 weeks. The alien transmission filled the speakers with musical sounds similar to Snow's own vocalizations, but far more complex. Snow listened for several moments, occasionally making soft replies. Her body language shifted from joy to concern to something that might have been embarrassment. "What are they saying?" Marcus asked quietly. "They are angry," Snow admitted. "They found my ship destroyed, found evidence of attack. They thought I was killed. When they detected my life signs on your station, they feared you had captured me for experiments or slavery." Marcus winced. If the alien fleet believed humans had kidnapped Snow, the situation was even more delicate than he'd thought. "Can you explain what really happened?" Snow began a longer exchange with the fleet, her vocalizations becoming more animated and elaborate. Marcus could pick out what sounded like his own name several times, along with Dr. Kim's. After several minutes of conversation, Snow turned back to him. "I told them the truth. How you found me broken and bleeding, how you chose to help instead of letting me die, how you gave up comfort and resources to care for me, how you protected me from those who would make me prisoner." She paused, then added, "They want to speak with you directly." Marcus's throat went dry. "I don't speak their language. I translate," Snow assured him. "But Marcus, friend, they will also judge you by how you act, not just what you say. Be yourself, the person who chose to help stranger in need." The next hour was the most intense of Marcus's life. Through Snow's translation, he spoke with Captain Zephyr, the fleet commander and Snow's elder sister. The conversation was careful, formal, with each word weighted with potential consequences. Captain Zephyr wanted to understand human motivations, human society, human intentions. Why had Marcus helped Snow when he could have profited from selling her? Why had he risked his career to protect her? What did humans want in return for their kindness? "We don't want anything in return," Marcus said. and saw Snow's golden eyes widen as she translated. Snow was hurt and needed help. That's all that mattered. The response from the fleet was a long silence, followed by what sounded like an intense discussion between multiple voices. Snow listened carefully, her expression growing more and more amazed. "What are they saying?" Marcus asked. "They are surprised," Snow said slowly. "My people have met other space-traveling species before. Always there were prices to pay for help. Always kindness came with expectation of reward. They did not expect to find species that helps simply because helping is right thing to do." Marcus felt a surge of pride in humanity, followed quickly by worry. "Does that help our situation?" Snow's response was interrupted by a new voice from the communications system, younger, more energetic than Captain Zephyr's measured tones. "Marcus, human," the voice said in carefully pronounced English. "I am Nova, sister to Snow who was lost. I have been learning your language from ship computers while searching. We wish to meet you in person." Marcus looked at Commander Torres, who had been listening to the entire exchange with growing amazement. The commander nodded slowly. "Tell them we would be honored to meet with them," Torres said. The docking procedure was unlike anything in Marcus's experience. The alien ship that approached the station moved with fluid grace, extending what looked like organic tendrils that bonded seamlessly with the station's docking ports. When the seal was complete, Marcus could swear he felt the alien ship's heartbeat through the station's hull. Snow was practically vibrating with excitement as they waited in the docking bay. She'd insisted on accompanying Marcus to the meeting, despite Dr. Kim's concerns about her recent injuries. "I am fine," Snow had insisted, "and my sister needs to see that I am healed, that humans truly cared for me properly." The airlock cycled, and Marcus got his first look at healthy, uninjured members of Snow's species. The three aliens who entered were magnificent. Each was larger than Snow, with scales that shimmered in colors ranging from deep sapphire to burnished gold. Their movements were graceful and purposeful, their intelligent eyes taking in every detail of the human station. The leader was clearly Nova, who resembled Snow but with scales the color of starlight. She approached slowly, her gaze fixed on her sister with an intensity that made Marcus step back to give them space. The reunion was deeply moving. The two aliens touched foreheads gently, their wings partially spread in what Marcus was beginning to recognize as an expression of strong emotion. They spoke in rapid, musical tones that rose and fell like birdsong. There were clearly tears in Nova's large eyes. After several minutes of emotional exchange, Nova turned to Marcus. When she spoke, her English was careful but much more fluent than Snow's had been initially. "Marcus, human," she said formally. "I am Nova, captain of the Star Whisper, sister to Snow who returns. You have given me back the most precious thing in all the void between stars. How can my people repay this debt?" Marcus felt the weight of the moment. His answer here could shape humanity's relationship with Snow's people for generations to come. "There is no debt," he said clearly. "Snow is family now, and family helps family. No payment is needed or wanted." The reaction was immediate and powerful. All three aliens made sounds of amazement, and Nova's scales seemed to shimmer more brightly. "Snow spoke truth," Nova said softly. "Your species has honor that reaches deep into the soul. This is rare in the galaxy." Dr. Kim, who had been observing from the side, stepped forward. "If I may ask, what happened to Snow's original ship? We found evidence of weapons damage." Nova's expression darkened, and she exchanged a look with Snow. "Pirates," she said simply. "A species called the Kethvar, who take prisoners for slave markets. They attacked our exploration vessel without warning, not knowing that we had sent distress signals before being destroyed." Marcus felt cold anger at the thought of Snow's crew being killed by slave traders. "And Snow?" I escaped in emergency pod, Snow explained. But pod was damaged, and I was badly hurt. I thought I would die alone in the cold dark before family could find me. But you didn't, Marcus said firmly, and your family did find you. Nova nodded solemnly. Yes, thanks to humans. Marcus, friend, you have shown us that not all species in this galaxy are driven by greed or cruelty. This is knowledge that will change how my people view yours. Over the next several hours, Marcus found himself at the center of the most important diplomatic meeting in human history. Nova and her companions shared information about the galaxy beyond human space, the various species, the political alliances, the dangers and opportunities that awaited expanding civilizations. It became clear that Snow's people, who called themselves the Zephyrians, were a major power in this region of space. They were explorers and traders, known for their advanced technology and their strict code of honor. They had been watching human expansion with interest, waiting to see what kind of species humanity would prove to be. Many young species become aggressive quickly, Nova explained. They take what they want by force, enslave weaker peoples, destroy rather than create. We needed to know if humans were the same. And now you know? Commander Torres asked. Nova looked at Marcus, then at Snow, who was clearly proud of her human friends. Now we know that humans can choose kindness over profit. This tells us much about your true nature. As the formal meeting concluded, Marcus found himself walking with Snow through the corridors of the station. It was almost time for her to leave, to return home with her sister and her people. The thought left him feeling surprisingly sad. "I'm going to miss you," he said quietly. Snow made a soft, trilling sound. "And I will miss you, Marcus, friend. But this is not goodbye forever." Marcus looked at her curiously. "What do you mean?" Snow's eyes sparkled with mischief. "Nova has offered to make you official human ambassador to Zephyrian people. You would come to our worlds, learn our ways, help our peoples become true friends." Marcus stopped walking, stunned. "She offered me a job?" "As a diplomat?" "As friend," Snow corrected. "As bridge between our kinds. Nova says if you choose kindness first when you know nothing about someone, you will choose wisdom when you know everything about them." The implications hit Marcus all at once. He would be leaving the mining station, leaving the only life he'd ever known. But he would also be opening doorways between species, helping to build friendships that could last for centuries. "What if I'm not good at it?" he asked. "I'm just a mechanic." Snow laughed, a sound like crystal bells. "Marcus, friend, you fixed much more than my broken bones. You fixed broken trust between species. If you can do that with no training, imagine what you can do when you try." Later that evening, as Snow prepared to board her sister's ship, Marcus stood in the docking bay with most of the station's crew. Word of the historic first contact had spread quickly, and everyone wanted to witness Snow's departure. Dr. Kim approached them with a small device in her hands. "Snow, I wanted to give you this before you leave. It's a medical scanner calibrated for your physiology, in case you're ever hurt again and can't get home for treatment." Snow accepted the gift with obvious emotion. "Thank you, Dr. Kim, friend. You and Marcus gave me life when mine was ending. I will never forget this kindness." Commander Torres stepped forward as well. "Snow, I want to apologize for how some of our people reacted initially. They were afraid, and fear makes people do foolish things sometimes." "Fear is natural," Snow replied graciously. "But you chose to listen to wisdom instead of fear. This shows strength of character." As the final preparations for departure were completed, Marcus found himself alone with Snow one last time. "There's something I need to know," he said. "That first day when you were so badly hurt, could you have healed without our help? Could you have survived on your own?" Snow was quiet for a long moment, her golden eyes reflecting the docking bay lights. "Yes," she said finally. My people heal quickly from most injuries. Given time, I would have recovered even without treatment. Marcus stared at her. But you let us help anyway. You pretended to need us more than you did. Snow nodded slowly. I was hurt in my heart as well as my body, Marcus friend. I had watched my crew family die, had seen the cruelty that exists in the galaxy. When I saw kindness in your eyes, I needed to know if it was real. So I let you help me, and I watched to see if you would tire of helping, if you would demand payment, if you would betray my trust. And what did you learn? Snow's expression was warm with affection and respect. I learned that sometimes, in the darkest moments, the galaxy gives us gifts we do not expect. I learned that there are people who choose to help simply because helping is right. I learned that my species was not wrong to believe that honor and kindness still exist among the stars. Marcus felt tears in his eyes as he understood the full scope of what had happened. Snow hadn't just been testing him. She'd been testing humanity itself. And somehow, incredibly, they'd passed. Thank you, he said softly, for trusting us with something so important. Snow reached out with one claw and gently touched his hand again, just as she had that first night. Thank you, Marcus friend, for showing me that my trust was not misplaced. As Snow's ship prepared to depart, she made one final gesture. Standing in the airlock, she spread her magnificent wings to their full span and sang. A complex, beautiful melody that filled the docking bay with harmony. Other voices joined hers from the ship, and soon the entire alien fleet was singing together. Marcus didn't need a translation to understand the meaning. It was a song of gratitude, of friendship, of hope for the future. It was a promise that this was just the beginning. As the ships departed, their beautiful forms disappearing into the star-filled darkness, Marcus felt a deep sense of satisfaction. He'd started this adventure as a simple mechanic fixing broken equipment on a mining station. He was ending it as humanity's first ambassador to an alien civilization, chosen not for his diplomatic training or political connections, but for his willingness to help a stranger in need. Commander Torres approached him as the last of the alien ships vanished from the sensors. "So, Mr. Chen," the commander said with a smile, "ready to make history?" Marcus thought about Snow, about the trust in her golden eyes, about the vast galaxy waiting beyond the station's walls. Somewhere out there, an entire civilization was waiting to become humanity's friend, all because one man had chosen kindness over fear. "Yes, sir," Marcus said, surprising himself with his confidence. "I'm ready." The stars seemed to sparkle a little brighter as the station resumed its quiet orbit, carrying with it the news that humanity had passed its first test among the civilizations of the galaxy. And at the center of it all was a simple truth that Snow had taught them. Sometimes the greatest strength was not in taking what you wanted, but in giving what was needed. In the weeks that followed, as Marcus prepared for his journey to the Zephyrian homeworlds, he often thought about that first night when Snow had hummed herself to sleep in the cargo bay. She'd been alone, hurt, and far from home, but she'd found the courage to trust in the kindness of strangers. Now, because of that trust, two species stood on the threshold of a friendship that could last for millennia, all because a mechanic had chosen to help a broken dragon, never knowing that she was already learning to fly again.